had expected, but rather at a London hospital.
Even though Meghan had let it be known she wanted a home birth, it was probably very realistic that her first child at 37, it was going to be born in hospital.
The certificate lists the private luxury Portland Hospital in Westminster.
The reviews for Harry and Meghan's big-budget Netflix series have so far been less than kind. Unimaginative and frustrating, said Hollywood's Bible Variety magazine. So sickening, I almost brought up my breakfast, said the woke Bible The Guardian.
At first glance, Meghan Markle's pregnancy announcement looked like it had been pulled straight from a modern fairy tale. Soft light, a serene smile, one hand resting on her belly, the other intertwined with Prince Harry's, a picture so polished it felt inevitable. The world saw exactly what it expected to see. A duchess, a baby, history continuing in glossy, Instagram-ready perfection. But almost immediately, a quiet unease set in, not loud enough to cause outrage, not dramatic enough for headlines, just subtle enough to make people look twice. Long before the mainstream press weighed in, royal watchers began noticing small details that didn't seem to line up. A baby bump that appeared fuller one week and noticeably smaller the next, sitting high in one appearance, lower just days later. At first, supporters offered reasonable explanations: camera angles, clothing, posture, lighting, but the pattern kept repeating, again and again, until curiosity replaced dismissal and screenshots began to circulate. It wasn't about accusations or conclusions, but about a growing sense that something about the picture-perfect narrative wasn't as straightforward as it seemed, and once that question took hold, it refused to let go.
Westminster focused on healthcare for women and children.
Meghan torched what little was left of their relationship with the royal family and what little was left, frankly, of their own reputations. Last week was mostly sycophantic.
What made the moment feel even more unusual was the contrast it created. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had famously stepped outside the Lindo wing just hours after giving birth, heels on, hair brushed, calmly holding her newborn for the cameras, not as a performance of glamour, but as a ritual of consistency the monarchy had repeated for decades. The baby is born, the public is reassured, the moment is shared. Meghan, by contrast, appeared to be writing a completely new script. Early reports from sources close to her spoke warmly about a home birth at Frogmore Cottage, described as peaceful, private, natural, a conscious rejection of royal rigidity that aligned perfectly with the image she was shaping: modern, independent, fully in control of her own narrative. The public accepted it easily, almost instinctively. Why wouldn't they? She had made it clear she didn't intend to follow tradition for tradition's sake. But then May 6, 2019 arrived, and the story quietly changed. There was no home birth, no Frogmore sanctuary. Meghan had given birth at the Portland Hospital in London. A hospital birth itself was never unusual or controversial. That was never the question. What raised eyebrows was the absence of explanation. No statement, no briefing, no simple acknowledgement that plans had shifted on medical advice. The narrative pivoted overnight, and instead of clarity, there was silence. And in the absence of answers, curiosity naturally rushed in to fill the gap.
Paps and journalists and media were following him all day, every day.
When you build a narrative so publicly, one wrapped in ideals like natural living, privacy, and personal autonomy, people naturally expect at least a simple explanation when that narrative suddenly changes, and what unsettled many wasn't the change itself, but the complete absence of clarity. There was no statement, no gentle correction, no acknowledgement that plans had shifted. The palace stayed quiet. Meghan didn't address it, and the press was left to fill in the blanks, and silence in moments like that is weight, because once people feel they're being carefully managed rather than openly informed, curiosity hardens into suspicion. That's when the internet did what it always does. It went back. Interviews were replayed, appearances slowed down, frames paused and zoomed, side-by-side comparisons spreading everywhere. Attention narrowed to the pregnancy itself. In some moments, Meghan moved cautiously, easing herself into chairs, hands protectively fixed around her stomach. In others, sometimes only days apart, she climbed stairs with ease, pivoted smoothly, moved without any visible restriction. Pregnancy affects everyone differently, of course, but the sharp contrast over such short time frames made people pause. It wasn't about one clip or one awkward angle, it was about a pattern. Highly protective movements when cameras were front and center, noticeably freer movement when they weren't. Online discussions didn't begin with accusations, but with questions. How could the bump appear so different so quickly? Why did the timeline feel compressed? Why did everything seem so tightly controlled? Then came another break from expectation. Instead of the customary announcement and presentation shortly after the birth, Meghan and Harry waited 2 days before introducing Archie to the world. Privacy alone wasn't the issue. Within the monarchy, tradition functions as transparency, and when tradition is broken without explanation, people assume there's something they're not meant.
I'm just going to say what I'm going to say.
Okay.
This is a 2-hour trash-a-thon of our royal family, of the monarchy, of everything the Queen has worked so hard for.
That was the moment the story took a darker turn, when alleged internal documents began circulating online, scheduling notes, appointment logs, detailed timelines that supposedly tracked Meghan's movements throughout the pregnancy. And if they were accurate, they didn't just challenge the public narrative, they tore straight through it. The records appeared to show hospital appointments logged on days when Meghan was photographed attending events across London, not near misses or timing quirks, but full contradictions where paperwork said one thing and cameras showed another. No one authenticated the documents, but no one denied them either, and in the court of public opinion, silence doesn't smother claims, it feeds them. That vacuum is where Piers Morgan stormed in, loud, unapologetic, and visibly enjoying the chaos, framing the controversy not as rumor, but as narrative engineering. On air, he brandished papers, cited dates, replayed clips, arguing the pregnancy story looked produced rather than lived, and then came his most explosive claim, that multiple versions of Archie's birth announcement had allegedly been drafted before the baby was even born, with different wording, timelines, and details prepared in advance. To him, that wasn't nervous planning, it was branding. Who pre-writes motherhood like a PR rollout? He asked. And again, Meghan and Harry said nothing. No denial, no clarification, no carefully worded statement. A striking silence from a couple known for swift rebuttals, and from Harry especially, a man who had built his identity around fighting false narratives. As days passed, even supporters began to waver. The online tone shifting from outrage to unease, from "this is bullying" to "why won't they just explain?" Old moments were re-examined, including the Oprah interview, now viewed through a harsher lens, with Morgan dissecting pauses, near tears, and emotional beats he claimed felt practiced rather than raw. Once audiences start questioning sincerity, according to one insider, the tension finally snapped when Harry slammed his hand on the table and said, "They don't get to question my family, ever." And in that moment, it was clear this was no longer a legal position but a moral one, and moral arguments collapse in courtrooms. Courts don't care how deeply something hurts. They care about what can be proven, and that was where the ground started to shift. Behind the scenes, pressure tightened fast. Emails were reopened, calendars cross-checked, dates re-verified against photographs published years earlier, and suddenly every public appearance during the pregnancy became a potential liability. Every interview answered a possible contradiction. What had seemed harmless in 2019 now looked calculated in hindsight. Why emphasize privacy so fiercely while allowing selective access? Why reject royal medical traditions yet rely on elite private hospitals? Why release information in fragments instead of clear statements? On their own, none of these questions meant anything. Together, they formed a pattern, and patterns invite scrutiny. And scrutiny always leads to the same uncomfortable question. What exactly are you trying to control? The real bombshell didn't arrive with headlines or leaks, but quietly, procedurally, as courts often do, in the form of a simple request for clarification. Not an accusation, not a demand for proof, just a routine question that carried a dangerous implication, because once clarification is requested, the narrative is no longer yours alone to manage.